political cover-up, said the
The ABC this week joined the Human Rights Commission to attack the Abbott government for detaining children at Christmas Island. But the introduction to the ABC 7:30's report this week pulled a Swiftie. See if you can spot it in this edited grab it presented from the Commission's hearings into children in detention.
How would you rate the standard of paediatric care on Christmas Island?
Well, I guess there isn't any paediatric care really, so very bad.
How about you, Dr. Sangharan?
Abysmal. Yep.
Kids would arrive very dehydrated, filthy, covered in vomit, human excrement. They would be sleep deprived, terrified, sunburnt. They're in a pretty bad way.
Spotted? Yes, the doctors were actually describing the condition of the children not on Christmas Island, but their condition when they got off the boats their own parents had put them on. The children's own parents left them dehydrated and covered in excrement, so why attack the government? Joining me is Miranda Devine, columnist for the Daily Telegraph and Herald Sun. Lovely to have you here, Miranda. What do you make of that coverage?
Well, it's just the typical ABC misleading attitude that they have taken to the asylum seeker issue pretty much since the Abbott government came to office. It's all about portraying what's going on in detention centres in the worst possible light, and it's ironic because under Labor, the last 6 years, they were pretty much silent. The entire human rights industry was silent on what was going on when the detention centres, you know, there were dozens of boats coming every week and the detention centres were full to overflowing. You had 2,000 children in detention last year, last July. Now there are fewer than half. There are less than 850 children in detention, and yet it's now that all this attention is being focused on, you know, the evils of children in detention. And the fact that that clip you just showed was really the worst thing that could be said. And the fact that those children, the worst things about them were that they had just suffered this voyage, which, as you said, their parents put them through. So, you know, to me, it's just making a mountain out of a molehill, specifically malevolently, maliciously, to cause trouble and to try and shame the Immigration Minister, Scott Morrison, into softening the border protection policies, which will never happen.
I find it amazing that the ABC coverage didn't underscore the fact that under the previous policies, where they were largely silent, children actually drowned at sea. But listen, staying with the ABC, its TV news bulletins last Sunday did a long story checking which promises the Abbott government has kept and especially which promises it has broken. Have a listen.
We can say the government's promise not to increase taxes has been broken.
Now, Miranda, why is the ABC TV News only now doing not news stories, but opinion pieces on government promises? It didn't do it under Labor.
It's classic, isn't it? Same story. You know, it's fine to be so diligent about tracking broken promises, but you have to do it to both sides. And, you know, again, all this diligence has only appeared since September last year when the Abbott government came to office, and suddenly it seems that all the combined resources of the ABC and any other left-leaning media is spent on holding the government to account when Australia suffered under 6 years of the most incompetent, destructive government that we have had in living memory, and nobody said anything. In fact, if anything, the ABC and so on were making excuses because a lot of the policies, disastrous policies that the Labor government, that Kevin Rudd, for instance, the dismantling of the border protection policies, all those policies were pushed on them by the left-leaning media. So, of course, when it all came to hell in a handbasket, predictably, what does the media do? They're trying to run cover for their own stupidity.
Well, it's a good value for the $10 million Labor last year gave the ABC, in part for this very fact-checking unit. They're getting value for our dollar. Look, switching to Israel, Miranda, I've been alarmed by not just by the anti-Israel bias of so much of the media, but something a little more sinister. Look at this cartoon that the Sydney Morning Herald ran this week of a hook-nosed Jew casually destroying a city from the comfort of his recliner. Now, if you put it next to the kind of cartoon the Nazis also used to run about the Jews creating wars, it becomes all a bit too familiar. Or am I overreacting, Miranda?
No, you're not overreacting, Andrew, at all. This, that image and the vicious column by Mike Carlton that accompanied it are just depraved. I mean, that is the same sort of propaganda that you used to see in 1930s Germany. You know, the hook-nosed Jew, he's sitting in an easy chair with a Star of David on the back of it. He's wearing a yarmulke. He's unmistakably Jewish. It's not even hiding behind the usual fig leaf of saying, oh, we're anti-Zionist or, you know, we're anti-Israel. No, this is anti-Jew. This is old-fashioned anti-Semitic Jew hatred. And how any editor would not have had warning bells and, you know, red sirens flashing when they saw that cartoon and read that column, I don't know. But in a funny way, I think we should be thankful to the cartoonist and the author because it's out there. You know, their bigotry is out there for all to see. They've flown their colours and there's no sort of pretense that this is somehow about being anti the State of Israel. This is pure and simple anti-Jew.
Well, look, maybe they just did it out of sheer ignorance and a lack of historical perspective. Maybe that's their excuse. But I wonder why this focus on Israel rather than, say, the war in Syria, where there haven't been 1,500 deaths, but 170,000 deaths, Miranda.
Exactly. It's so hypocritical. Also, the fact that, you know, the ancient Iraqi town of Mosul, where Christians have lived for 2,000 years, has been cleansed of Christians. Every last Christian has been driven out of there by the Islamic State terrorists. And that's hardly mentioned, you know. There had to be a protest in Sydney yesterday for people to even, you know, start reporting this on the news, and yet Gaza, you know, it leads the bulletins. It's number 2, it's number 3. And you know, that is exactly what Hamas wants. This is the Western media has played into this Hamas propaganda war, which is using those innocent children who are being killed, using them as their human shields, you know, their fodder, their media fodder, because it makes great footage, it makes great propaganda, and the gullible fools of the Western media are falling for it and making out that this war is some sort of, you know, there's moral equivalency there, and, you know, that somehow Israel is, as Lee Rhiannon told a rally, a Gaza rally a couple of weeks ago, the Greens MP, this is a war of an oppressor against the oppressed. You know, that is the narrative that's out there, and it's so wrong, but all it does is allow Hamas to continue doing what they're doing and using innocent civilians as their human shields.
Yes, I wish that the media be a little more awake to this, and I also worry about the fact that so many journalists are embedded with a terrorist state and not actually conceding that they may not be getting the full picture. Miranda Devine, thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks, Andrew.
Coming up...